your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, and be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Reverend Dr. D. Richard Dugan. Thank you so much for joining us as we have a very special guest here on the program. He's going to share with us his remarkable journey from chaotic home marked by addiction and neglect to building a thriving moving and storage business. Ladies and gentlemen, that would work great for us right now since we're moving. However, he is retired. It's that particular business on the East Coast. And then the gripping memoir. And basically, it's called Live a Better Life, One Man's Journey of Survival, Sobriety, and Success. The 3 S's, John Beyer. Thank you so much for being with us to share your story.
Thank you. Thank you.
You got a great smile too, by the way. I got to tell you that. It's we need more of that in this world today. We really do. You come from let me ask you the question. Do you come from humble beginnings, especially when it comes to the childhood? Do you look at it that way?
At one time my parents were doing very well, but their addiction, they were both bona fide alcoholics, took over, and the little bit that what we did have, they lost, and we fell into. They got a divorce as a matter of course, as Billy Joel would say in one of his songs, and and life fell apart. And overnight, we were on food stamps and public assistance, and being evicted, and living in a neighborhood that got a little rough there for a while. Yeah.
But we all go through that kind of stuff, right? I mean, some to greater or lesser degree. And you've so to speak, come out the other side to share with us your story in that regard. Tell us about you've shared a little bit about your upbringing. I'm curious, was there any philosophical upbringing, any particular faith that you were raised in that may or may not have helped you somewhere along the way to dig yourself out of that hole?
Well, I when I was younger, I was very involved with the Catholic Church. I made my communion and I made my confirmation. And the truth is that puberty arrived and religion went out the window. And I say that, and people laugh sometimes when I say that, but that's what happened. And my home life at the same time was falling apart then too. So there was no structure, there was nowhere, and religion and faith became nowhere. They were gone. So I did have some, principled guidance. My parents weren't bad people; they were troubled people. They were sick with the disease of addiction and namely alcoholism. And my mom was depressed. And I said it was never going to happen to me, never going to happen to me. But the first time I picked up a drink, I drank alcoholically. My friends and I were doing shotguns of beer in the hallway staircase of our building. And shotgun of beer, you puncture a hole in the can, and then you turn it upside down and you open up the top, and the beer rushes down your throat. And I didn't spill a drop, and my friends are spilling it all over, and I'm trying to catch it. And as soon as they're done and gathering themselves, I say, "Come on, let's go get the big cans. Let's go get the tall boys." So I just drank differently out of the gate. And as much as it wasn't going to happen to me, it happened to me right away from one of the first drinks I ever had. And yeah, so I only drank alcoholically for about 9, 10 years, and it was pretty rough. When I was 21, my sister dragged me to a GI specialist because I was complaining about stomach problems. And I take the GI series, I drink the malted. I didn't meet the doctor yet. And the nurse says, go down the hall, make a left. And I have the robe on. I'm gripping the robe behind me, walking through the doctor's office, so nobody can see my behind. And I stand in the doorway, and there are two doctors looking up at the light box. And I clear my throat so I can get their attention. I said, "Hi, my name is John Beyer," and I was 21 at the time. And they turned around and said to me, "You're John Beyer? We were expecting somebody 80 years old. What are you doing to your stomach?" So that's how bad I was at 21. And I left there with a prescription for medication, and I drank another 5 years more. And I damaged my body, and I wound up having stage 3 to 4 alcoholism at the age of 26 years old. And I found the refuge of Alcoholics Anonymous. Went to my
Mm,
first meeting on March 31st, 1986, and haven't stopped going.
wow. That is an early age, and I I know that even in my family, my mother's side of the family in particular, because we would spend more times at family reunions. Boy, there was indeed a lot of drinking going on. I don't know that they would qualify as alcoholics, but hey, that's their business, not mine. Love them all dearly, just the same. Now, you are an author, entrepreneur. You're a singer and a songwriter.
I am.
Tell
I
me
am.
about the genre that you like to write and sing with.
So when I was a kid, I made the High School of Music and Art for singing, and which is a famous high school in New York. And I got in, and I went for a few months, but it was very far from my house, so I wound up not going. After just a few months, I transferred to my regular high school, and that was a major decision. And I made the decision on my own because my parents were mentally absent, even if they were physically there. Um, and they weren't even physically there most of the time. Uh, but my mom, when she was even drunk, when I was 8, 10 years old, would make me. She would sing in a. Sometimes she was drunk, sometimes she wasn't, and she would be in a depressed state, and she would make me sing along to Frank Sinatra and Andy Williams and the crooners, Tony Bennett, and so on and so forth. And I would sing, and I enjoyed it. I loved the attention because I didn't get a lot of attention. So when I was getting that attention, it felt good. So that's the type of music. And I graduated high school in '78, and Barry Manilow was pretty popular back then. I was singing some Barry Manilow songs. A lot of men don't like to admit it, but I do. I like Barry Manilow.
You and me both. You and me both. And yeah, you're right. We don't like to admit it, but the reality is, I think that, and this kind of ties into what we're talking about here in your story. He's got a great. There's one song that I love, and it's all a cappella, and it's all him, and it's called One Voice.
One voice.
One
I knew
voice singing in the
I would have
darkness.
predicted the song. I would have
Did
told
it?
you what song it was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. I actually like to think of it in a manner of speaking as yeah, I don't know if I'd necessarily call it my theme song per se, but it's certainly one that I related to because I've always felt that it only takes one voice, just getting things rolling and talking about these issues. And one of the other issues that I know you're involved in, of course, you're an advocate as well as the chairman of the Long Island chapter of Autism Speaks.
I was when it, yeah, it's no
Yeah.
longer in existence now.
Okay.
The Long Island chapter, they did away with the chapters, but I was the founding president of the Long Island chapter. My wife and I have been incredibly involved in the autism community. Our youngest child, Gregory, who's now 33 years old, um, is has autism.
Mm. What about the Spectrum Designs Foundation?
Oh,
Is that
okay,
all?
that's great. That's a great story. Spectrum Designs is an organization that employs uh, adults with autism, neurodiverse individuals. They make T-shirts and hats, and I'm looking around my office to show you something. Yeah, like this, for instance. This is the name of my moving company, and they printed a hat like this.
Oh,
The
very nice.
Yeah,
Perfect right there.
and they do
Yeah.
first rate. They do work for Uber and Microsoft and Google. I don't know if you've ever heard of any of those companies, but they do. No, they're doing very well.
Yeah.
And my son-in-law is one of the founders of that organization. Patrick came over from Wales on the Camp America program when he was a teenager. I don't know, he was 13 years old, 14 years old in high school, and he happened to become my son's camp counselor, and he would come back year after year, and he was a delightful young man. And my wife would always tell my daughter Lauren, who's a couple of years older than my son, Lauren, you got to meet this Patrick. He's very good looking. And well, one day, Patrick says to me he's going to be attending university on Long Island. This is a great story, and he tells us this, and we said that's great. Uh, One day, Lauren takes Gregory to lunch at a local pub, and they're having a burger, and Patrick's at the bar having a pint, and he sees Gregory cross the dining room to go to the bathroom. Wow, Gregory's here. This isn't camp, this is, and he walks over to the table and he says, "You must be Lauren Beyer." And the rest, as they say, is history. They wound up getting married, and I have a beautiful granddaughter and another one on the way. And my son-in-law Patrick founded this organization that employs adults with autism. 40 adults work there making T-shirts, hats, everything. They do a lot.
Oh,
It's
wow.
really a wonderful organization.
Well, before we pause here, tell me about the Davis Center.
The David Center was an organization that my wife and I were founding board members years ago. It's dissolved. It started with a doctor, Dr. Pat Elvier. She was a pediatrician whose son was on the spectrum, and the she was stunned as a pediatrician at the time. She did not know where to go and what to do with the diagnosis. So therefore, she decided to form the David Center and educate. And she did rounds educating other doctors on how to teach them. And we grew that organization. And she moved away, and we all moved on to different things. And we're still very much in touch. And that's just one of the many organizations my wife and I have been involved with over the years.
Well, I know it's
So
important
my
to.
son, my son was diagnosed on his right after his second birthday. So for 31 years, my wife was on the school board for years, and she did worked wonders there. She made all kinds of programs happen, and she won best school board member in the state of New York out of 600 school board members. So we worked very hard for the cause and for other people, not just our son.
Well, before we take our first pause here, I want to ask you, how do people get in touch with you? A website that you have available for folks?
Yes, the best website is Johnbeyermusic.com. Um,
Okay.
and my moving company is my email is johnbeyer um, at menonthemove.com.
All right. Well, we'll have people get in touch with you in that regard because it just seems to me that the work that you're doing actually epitomizes what it is that, quite honestly, and I worked for 15 years back in the 80s, early 90s for a Christian radio station. And I remember reading, of course, what true religion is. It has nothing to do with the building in that regard. It has to do with taking care of the widows and the orphans, the unfortunate, those people who need help. That is what true religion is, and you are about that in that regard, in this regard. And we're going to talk more about that as we continue here with John Beyer. Johnbeyermusic.com. That's the website we will be linked to here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan along with John Beyer, and one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, diving back into the aspect of your sobriety as well as your alcoholism, I heard an interesting definition not long ago about what alcoholism is, the addiction, and it actually has nothing to do with the alcohol. They said that the cause, if you will, is a lack of community, a lack of connection with other people. What are your thoughts on that definition in that regard?
I think that definition really does touch pretty squarely on what's needed to get sober. And the first step of Alcoholics Anonymous and any 12-step program is we we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. The we is the first word in the first step, and AA is referred to as a fellowship all the time. The two founders, Dr. Bob and Bill Wilson, found that they could stay sober if they talked to each other. They could not do it on their own. So that's a pretty square definition for me. Yeah, I like that.
And of course, that's really what we're all about on this program and on all of the conversations that we have is that we're all, not only are we all connected, if I put it this way, if the good Lord had intended for each one of us 8.5 billion people to live on separate planets, Class M planets, I do believe there are sufficient planets in the universe for each one of us to occupy one. But the reality is we're all here together. And that speaks volumes right there. It really does, regardless of your circumstances. And that seems to me to be especially a focal point in regards to, I think, even your moving company, Men on the Move moving and storage,
Moving in storage, yes. Men on
because
the move.
yeah, because you're not only connecting with people who are moving or who want to store their material, their stuff, all right, but you are connecting with these people during one of the things you mentioned was one of the top four most stressful times in their life, and I would venture that the people you hire have to have a certain temperament. I would believe, in order to recognize that these folks who are having us move their stuff, they're hurting, they're stressing, they're going
It,
through the grieving process.
that's very true. I use in my book, Live a Little Better, I used the moving as a metaphor for life. Um, yes, my employees, we've had a dozen of them become certified by the National Association for Senior Move Managers, so that when you're moving, particularly a senior person, you're handling them with extra kid gloves and extra gentle and extra, patience and understanding, and that disseminates into all the moves, for regardless of whatever age somebody is, and that's important to really care about the other person. Um, I want to mention something. On the very day I was considering going to AA, I woke up. I was in pretty bad shape, or I shouldn't say I woke up. I came to, and I knew I was in trouble. And I actually received a piece of mail saying that my library card was ready, and I stuffed that information in my pocket. There was no internet then. There was no cell phones. I wound up calling my girlfriend, who's now my wife for 38 years, and I call her up and I tell her I think I'm going to my first AA meeting tonight. And I called up and found out where the meetings were, and I stuffed the information in my pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the library on the very day I'm considering going to my first meeting. I go into this library And on the way out, I just picked up the library card, and the library was very loud that day. There were kindergartners class there, and it was actually very loud. I couldn't wait to get out. My nerves were shot. There was this rack of books all on DWIs. Now, I had never gotten a DWI, but for some reason, something said, pick up that book, look at the book. I picked up the book, this 400-page book, inadvertently, randomly opened it up to the one paragraph on Alcoholics Anonymous. And it
Hmm.
said that it's the most successful program for the treatment of the disease of alcoholism. I'm summing up what the one paragraph said. That was on the very day I was considering going to my first meeting.
Wow.
I do feel as if the Lord said, this puppy's had enough. I want to help him. I'm going to save him.
Yeah.
And I went to my first meeting that night, and it's never been the same.
There was a great clip I saw of a movie, Morgan Freeman, who played God, and he was talking with this gal at a restaurant, and she was saying, "Hey," and he was sweeping up. He was playing the role of the busboy. She says, "Could I get some more fries?" And of course, and she looked kind of sad. So he sits down next to her and says, "What's going on?" And she shares with him, and so he responds with sort of a couple of statements. He says you talk about wanting patience, wanting courage, and wanting love, and so forth. Do you think that God, when someone prays for that, just gives them patience or courage or love? He says no. God gives them the opportunities to be patient and courageous and to give love. And that's kind of the way I think that it does work. I really do. That the opportunities are put before us. And you had one of those right before you went to that AA meeting. Have you had experiences like that either before or since that wonderful, we'll call it a miraculous event, so to speak,
Yeah.
where you just like you just know you're going in the right direction and you get these little signs every once in a while saying, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things that have occurred, um, but what I've learned is, it's not about me, and I don't have to control everything. I'm not in control of everything. I can turn it over and let it go. Um, uh, that doesn't mean sometimes I try to take back my will. I do, of course. I'm human. I'm not perfect, and but what really matters is helping people who can't help themselves, people who are less fortunate. Uh, I was given the gift of being asked every year. I go out on a retreat to a retreat house in Sag Harbor called the Cor Maria Retreat House. Somebody brought me out there when I was 6 months sober, and I've been going out there for 39 years.
Mm.
And I was asked several years ago to be the first retreatant ever to sit on the board of that retreat house. And boy, what a gift that's been. What a gift that's been. The retreat house at Cor Maria in Sag Harbor, New York. That's been amazing. And you see miracles happen out there all the time. You do. You see people just bare their souls and come back, and they're different human beings. And it's a wonderful transformation.
It's interesting that you speak of that, and it ties into what we talked about earlier in music and one voice. I participated back in the 80s in a program called LifeSpring, sort of an outgrowth of EST here back in Phoenix, my hometown. And um, we were we were to get up in front of the entire group and do something to express ourselves and of course I'm fearing this whole thing thinking, oh, what am I going to do? I what the heck? And so I stand up there and I'm just standing there in silence for what seemed like forever. And then that song came into my head
Hmm.
and I started singing it ever so softly and slowly. And then
Mhm.
I started to move around and then I started to clap and get louder and louder. And everybody in the room started to join in terms of the clapping. And I had the whole room just jumping, and I was only, I think, 21 at the time. And it wasn't something that I felt real comfortable doing at the time. I mean, I love singing, don't get me wrong, but in front of a bunch of people. And it said to me a whole lot about what I needed to do in my life. I needed to get out there and do more than what I was doing. And it ties into what you're talking about with this group that you were with. And I want to ask you because we also talked about men's, that guys, they don't like to, share where they're at and what they're going through and so forth. And I had a men's group that I started back in Phoenix when I was in my first marriage, but it was only three of us. There was two other guys and me. We started out with Robert Bly's book Iron John. That was sort of our men's group primer. And then we expanded it. And we started taking hikes around the valley to different mountain ranges. And we even went up as far north as a place called Seven Springs. And it was an incredible, we even hiked in the pouring rain. It was fabulous. I loved it. And I'm wondering how important it is because, yes, both men and women are dealing with addictions. But I'm curious about the men's side of the spectrum and how important that is for men to get together to share what's going on deep inside with other men who, unlike women, truly, and I don't say this derogatorily, who really can't understand where a man is coming from any more than we can understand where women are really coming from. We're trying. We really are, ladies. But what about that aspect of one's life and growing through some of these experiences?
You mentioned the David Center before, which is an organization for families affected by autism, and this has to be 27, 8 years ago. I started the father support group just for the fathers of children, um, who had autism, and only a handful of guys would come, but that was incredibly rewarding. That went on for a couple of years. That was very rewarding, and I got that because of the program. And it is all men at the group out in Cormaria at the retreat house, and the honesty, the almost confessions that you would hear, and there's no judgment whatsoever, is really remarkable.
Mm.
And it is transformative, though. And people seek a higher power. They feel like they're not alone anymore. It's crucial to be connected to friends and other men in a way that way, so that you can be comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah, I found it fascinating. Of course, I can't even remember why the group why we disbanded per se. I maybe one of them was moving. I know that the elder gentleman, we called him the professor. His name was also Richard, and I mean he's probably since passed away. But it was fascinating the things that we would talk about, but also the things that we would learn. For me, he and I, the three of us were going to meet at a campsite up at a place called Woods Canyon Lake in Arizona. And so the professor and I drove up in his van or in his truck, filled to the brim in the back with all kinds of stuff, including his fiberglass boat that he and I had worked on for weeks in my carport, my wife's and my home in the carport. And we get up there and we're taking everything out and we're doing the thing. And the next thing I know, we have something to eat. And then he wants to tell me how to do dishes. And of course, I grew up in a family of six kids and two parents. And one of the chores that we were given
You know
to
how to
do
do dishes.
dishes. Exactly. And I started to get really irritated. And I says, you don't need to tell me how to do this. I know how to do this. And it was one of those things where the professor was trying to be the teacher and I just got really irritated. And I finally I walked up the hill. I said, enough already. And about 15, 20 minutes later, he comes walking up the hill and he says, you triggered my PTSD. He was a Vietnam vet. And I said, a basic response was, you're not my professor. You're not my teacher. And you're not my father. You're my friend. So stop telling me how to do stuff. And if I need to know, I'll ask, you know. But it was that, and I was 33 at the time. And it was at that time that I said to myself, that was the day I became a man. Now, it's because I stood up for myself. I didn't hit anybody. I didn't have to, do anything like that. I just spoke my truth about me, whether he liked it or not. And, but, we went on to be friends. I wonder what your thoughts are about that transition moment. Did you have a seminal moment where you finally realized, I made it? Uh,
Well, I always share this at meetings actually, that the best day of my life was my first anniversary in Alcoholics Anonymous. Um, I had stayed clean and sober for a year, and I met responsibilities. I became responsible. I showed up when I was supposed to show up. I told the truth at least most of the time. I became reliable. Um, and I remember standing up there. My sisters came. My parents were already long gone, even though I was 26. My parents died when I was 24 and 21, my mom and dad, respectively. And I'm 26, and my first anniversary, I'm 27. And I remember just feeling I can be and do and have anything I want as long as I turn my will over to the care of God and accept the fact that I'm an alcoholic.
hmm,
And that has been realized by me for many years now.
hmm. John Beyer is my guest, and we're talking about the work that he has done on himself and for himself, as well as for others, through many of the things that he's created in his life. And we're going to continue talking about that, as well as his book, Live a Little Bit Better: One Man's Journey of Survival, Sobriety, and Success, here on Tell Me Your Story. I am Richard Dugan, Reverend Dr. D. We're here with John Beyer, and we're talking about not only his book, Live a Little Better, basically available through Amazon, but you can go to Johnbeyermusic.com to find out more about John and the work that he is doing. Um, you may remember this gentleman, Tim Allen, and his comedy routine. I think you just entitled it "Men Are Pigs." And he used to talk about how guys needed to get together to do this, that, and the other thing, and he got a lot of blowback on that because they thought he was being anti-woman, when in fact he was being just the opposite, because he was basically saying that when guys get together, and not necessarily not at the bar, for drinks, but getting together like in men's groups, like what you and I have experienced, um, they learn about themselves, they learn more about who they are, and they bring that back into the relationship. I will tell you that at one point in my life, about 5 years ago, I worked with a woman who helps people to find their song. Her name is Emily Yurchison, and she helped me to write a song. It's actually the second song I wrote. The first song I can't find the lyrics to, but I will. I will. Um, the song that I wrote with her, or with her help, if you will, it was a song called "I'm a Good Man," and the chorus line is, "I'm a good man doing the best I can, and where I'm going is where I'm coming from," and then which is an homage to my parents, because it was they who raised me, who taught me the things that I know. And I'm curious, from your standpoint, you've already described your parents and your relationship and their life. Where did you get the training, the upbringing, the guidance to be, honestly, to be the kind of man that you are today?
You know, everybody they knows or is aware of, or they've heard of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's 12 promises in AA also, and one of those promises is rather all encompassing. And it says, we will intuitively know how to handle situations that once baffled us. And with just being clear and and listening. I mean, I've estimated over 5,000 meetings. I had gone to therapy for many years before and after, I drinking, um, BD and AD before drinking and after drinking. Yeah. Um, I don't know. I mean, I think my parents were inherently good people and well-intended. Like I said, I think they were just troubled. And I like to think I was a pretty good parent. My kids love me and still tell me that and kiss me. So
Yeah, it's
now I like to think of make sure I'm a good grandfather.
there you go. There you go. One of the things, I don't have any children, and this lifetime, I guess that's fine. Um, I think about my father all the time since his passing a couple of years ago, and how he raised us, not just me, but the other five. And I remember him sharing what I thought was a self-deprecating statement. Turned out it was just the opposite. When he would say that, your mother gets all the credit for raising you kids. And it wasn't putting himself down, it was lifting her up.
Mm.
And also that I think that he chose the right woman to be with. Apparently, it was for him, it was love at first sight, but it took her a little while longer to finally come around to say yes to him. And then they raised the six of us. And at his memorial, if there were a theme, and none of us, we didn't coordinate our statements, his memorial, the theme would have been, Dad, we are who we are because you are in our lives. And I still, every once in a while, when I think about him and I sort of hear his voice in my head, I think of the lessons that were given, and from my mother too. And it's extraordinary. So would you say that in a lot of cases, men don't seem to realize, they're not really aware of the impact that they have on the people
I
around
do
them, whether they're children or otherwise?
I do think that they don't realize it. I think that when we get older, we realize things. I mean, my dad died when I was 21, but I hear little quips of things that he said, and he kind of disappeared for a while, with his own issues. He did, and one time he was a very successful businessman, and he drank all that away and had heart attacks, and he died
Mm,
dead broke. Um, but he would say things to me. There's one thing he said to me that always resonates, and it was a business. It was in reference to like business and life and having an exchange with somebody with money. He said, "Just remember, John," he said, "everybody has to get theirs. Everybody's entitled to make their own money." And the way he would repeat to me later on, just remember, everybody's got to get theirs. Like let people make their own money too, and I hear that voice in my head all the time. And I had a friend when I was younger, it's in my book, who did commit suicide a year before my dad died. And I called his house and they found him. And the story's in the book, Live a Little Better. And I wound up calling my dad on a payphone and I was crying. And he said to me, "Son," he said, "life is for the living. Life is for the living. Life goes on." And he died a year later. And all those words, just life is for the living. Life is for the living. So I try to live life as fully as I can each day, one day at a time.
yeah, I'm with you there. John Beyer's my guest. Johnbeyermusic.com is the website. The book is entitled Live a Little Bit Better. It's one man's journey of survival, sobriety, and success as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. When I think about the process of going through the various challenges that we have in our lives, whether you want to call them addictions or otherwise, it is to me fascinating, the ways in which people are able to, so to speak, rescue themselves. But we don't do it alone. We never have. I am not where I'm at because of all of the things that I have done. I am beholden to thousands upon thousands of people, probably starting with my parents. I'm curious as to when that realization struck you that, my goodness, I've achieved a lot, you know, and I did achieve a lot. I started this business, wrote this book, et cetera, et cetera. But there are a lot of people behind me who have been supporting me along the way. What are your thoughts about that aspect, especially when it comes to the fact that it shows that we're all connected, that we're all here working together, so to speak?
Yeah, well, I think I learned those principles again in the program because the 12th step of AA is I'll shorten it and just say that you have to give it away to keep it. So you the longer version is that you carry these principles in all of our affairs and you want to help other people recover from alcoholism and their issues. And the most rewarding thing in my entire life that I've ever experienced is watching another alcoholic get sober and their lives turn around and become real. That is the most rewarding thing I've ever experienced in my life. I love my watching my daughter play soccer when she was in high school. She was really good. But the most rewarding thing is seeing somebody turn their lives around that way. And that was not a light switch. That was like a dimmer switch getting brighter and brighter as time passed, where that came more into focus and more into view for me. And now I want to give away everything I have at this point in my life. I'm 65 years old, and I want to give away everything that I have in life, my knowledge, information, whatever money I've accumulated, I want to give away. And my wife and I have conversations about how we're doing that, and trust and having a trust set up, a foundation set up, and helping people on the spectrum. And I want to help people learn about the function of money. I think a lot of people don't understand the function of money and not how to make money, but how money actually works and how money makes money. I don't think that's taught now schools well enough, and certainly not in black and brown population areas. So that's an area of focus that the foundation is going to be focusing on.
I honestly can tell you, I don't recall ever seeing anywhere in my 12 years of, we'll call it mandatory school, that I learned anything about how to balance a checkbook, or go through any of those machinations in terms of understanding funds and so forth. John, I'm curious as to the impetus of Live a Little Bit Better. Where did that title come from? And why Live a Little Bit Better?
So the title of Live a Little Better, it comes from a billboard from the development that I grew up in between the ages of 8 and 15. There was a 20 building complex called Lefrak City off the Long Island Expressway in Queens, New York. It was a huge complex, and the billboard said, Lefrak City, live a little better. And that was there for decades. And I think subconsciously, I wanted to always live a little better. And when I was first starting my moving business, I would go into people's homes and it would be like, "Ooh, wow, I'll never live in a home like this." And I worked very hard and took a lot of chances. I worked very a little maniacal actually for many, many, many years. In fact, when I was writing the book, I used the word I used the term I worked like a maniac so many times that when I went back to it, I said I have to take it out a bunch of times because I said it too often. But I
Ah,
really did work obsessively. And I live in a very nice home today. I live in quite a home today. And but it's not about the materialistic things. I didn't call it a very nice house. I called it a very nice home. There is a difference there. But the fun thing about it is that that term "live a little better" and the billboard made the cover of the book. On the top, on the bottom of the book, there's a sepia type photo there. It turns out that my daughter, we were on in traffic on the Long Island Expressway, which is very common, and she was taking a photography class in college at the time. She was home from school, and she rolled down the window and pointed her 35 millimeter camera out and took the picture of the billboard. And I had no idea she was doing this. I'm driving, I'm doing about maybe 15, 20 miles an hour, like I said, in traffic. And 2 weeks later, after being there for decades, the billboard came down. And I found that such a profound thing that she caught that photo. And when I was thinking of the title of the book and the impact of growing up in Lafrac City, and all of the people that I'm still friends with, and that was from 8 to 15. I'm still friends with a dozen guys from Lafrac and girls. Uh, so that just felt the right thing, and that's where it comes from.
Well, folks, Live a Little Better is a candid, inspiring memoir that speaks to anyone who has faced addiction, family dysfunction, or life altering adversity and proves that you can come through it stronger and with purpose and hope as we continue here with John Beyer here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan with John Beyer, and the website I want to direct you folks to is Johnbeyermusic.com. That's JohnBeyermusic.com, and find out about the work that he's doing through all of the different aspects of his life. One of the other words that is used in here is transformation. Now, you probably are familiar with the get together between Jesus and his disciples, and they were watching him doing all these miracles and saying, "Hey, could you teach us how to do that stuff?" And he said, "Well, sure, I could do that, but I'm going to tell you something. You think this is something? You guys are going to do greater works than these." Now, I personally believe, this is now me speaking, that greater work is the transformation of our lives. And that's the process you're taking people through. Talk to us about that.
Well, when if you sponsor somebody who is down and out, feels like they have no hope, they're physically hurting because of their addiction, they are broke, they're economically in the toilet, their relationships, they have no sense of faith, they have no sense of being able to do better and be more than that they are. And you walk them through staying clear-minded a day at a time and talk about things in a positive sense and put God in their life, good orderly direction, if that's what they want to call it, um, and see that turnaround. It is it's absolutely the most rewarding thing that anyone could experience. It's a beautiful thing.
And I am sure that you have run into people in the program when you start, whether you use the word faith or some other word to describe it, that you do get from some resistance. I don't believe that stuff. That's just garbage. There's no God and da 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 da. How do you how do you approach that? Because you and I both know you can't force this kind of conversation on someone who has had basically, I would venture, has had a bad experience with organized religion, et cetera, et cetera.
So I tell them that just listen, you didn't have all the answers. If you had all the answers, you wouldn't be here. And you're here for a reason. You didn't get here by accident.
Yeah.
Nobody walks into those rooms by accident, you know. So have a little blind faith right now. And over time, invariably, it comes to them where they have a sense that it's not just them, that there is a power greater than themselves that has gotten them there and it's directing them, and then they can let go and say, and wake up with a purpose in life that is to help others in, first before themselves.
Yeah.
And it just does come over time.
It's interesting to think of that the passage about faith. Faith is, if I get I have to say I'm paraphrasing, the evidence of things hoped for, or is of the things hoped for, but the evidence of things not seen. And the other line from the gospel is that Jesus said, "Blessed is he who, um, uh, blessed is he who does not see and yet believes." And that to me is it speaks volumes because we believe there's oxygen and we're breathing, but we don't see it. Okay, so what are you gonna do with that? you know? I mean, really, what are you going to do with that? It is, and I have to say that I've had experiences in my life where, and I want to I would like for you to touch upon this also, where I've gone within and listened to what we call that still small voice. I myself, I call it my friend, and follow those promptings. How important, where in the program does it talk about listening to the inner voice, about that guidance that is there to help you, to guide you, to protect you for that matter? Because I don't believe that that still small voice will ever steer you wrong. It won't put you in harm's way.
Yeah. Every morning I like to have a cup of coffee and sit out on my um, deck and just be calm and have a moment of meditation and speak to someone greater than myself and say, your will, not my will, be done. And and just want to help other people.
Mm.
That's how I do it every day for me.
And it's a daily choice. Some people will interpret that as saying, "Well, you're giving up. You're not in control anymore." And the reality is that you are by making that choice to surrender and follow.
Correct. I will tell you that I wrote a song, the first song I recorded and published. It's called Powerless, and it repeats over and over again um, the line, it takes strength to admit we are powerless. And that irony is very, very true. And when you let go of control, it's actually very empowering.
Yeah. And that's one of the interesting things that I have found over the years in terms of the various, shall we call them attributes or personality characteristics, what have you, of a man, in that they say, well, men don't cry and men aren't vulnerable, and that shows weakness. And it's like, it's actually just the opposite. You are stronger when you are vulnerable,
Right?
when you are open, and that's so important. I know there's another part in the 12 steps that talks about making amends to those people you may have inadvertently or what have you injured or harmed or what
Harmed.
have you. I'm curious about the other side of the coin in terms of those who have harmed and injured you, the forgiveness that kind of swing. It's a swinging door that swings both ways. This forgiveness thing, and that according to the math from the Bible, you're supposed to forgive 70 times seven, which is 490 times. Who keeps count? But what about forgiveness in all of this for you?
Well, it's best exemplified when you're driving.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I didn't always react the way I react today, which is often when somebody makes a gesture towards me or beeps the horn and is cursing from the glass there. I generally raise my hand and do this. And I mean it actually now. I wish them well, and I wish they don't have any anger. And that's my own little prayer for them to be happier, so that and that they can take their angst, whatever they're feeling, and put it in a more positive way and let it go.
Yeah. I remember when I was in LifeSpring, we were driving down the highway heading back to the center. um, and this car raced past us. And each one of us made some kind of a comment about that. Oh my God, I just gotta hope they don't get into a wreck. And oh, my goodness, they're being dangerous to everybody. Right, there's all the different comments. And then the next thing you know, about a mile down the road, there was that car crashed, and that impacted all of us. And we talked about it at that session that evening.
Mm.
Uh, you know, um, did we do that? Oh my God, and I mean, because we all felt a certain level of responsibility because we sent out all that negative energy, so to speak. So, when you start thinking about it from that standpoint, whether it is true or not, whether we did it or not, what if your words could do those kinds of things? And now all of a sudden you're causing all kinds of chaos on the roadway. Maybe it would be better to do what you're doing, blow them a kiss and say, I wish you well,
Yeah.
be safe, plus the fact that paperwork is nothing but a headache. Okay.
Okay.
Dealing with the
Yeah,
insurance company.
I'm on the phone.
Okay, talk.
So it's fascinating to me how we finally come to these things. I want to thank you so much, John, for being with us here on the program and sharing your story. Again, the title of the book, folks, his memoir is Live a Little Better. It's one man's journey of survival, sobriety, and success. The website is Johnbeyermusic.com, which we will be linked to. It's available, I'm sure, on Amazon. I'm curious, is it in Audible yet?
Not yet. It will be.
Wonderful. We'll look forward to that, and we hope that you'll do that. I do have three final questions that I do want to ask you, but again, thank you so much for being a part of the work we're doing here.
Thank you. It's a
I
pleasure.
want to I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com, with podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and we're on YouTube where you can watch these conversations. You can also go to Amazon to pick up a copy of my book, Choices 5 Steps for Life, available in hardcover, paperback, as well as Audible, coming soon. Oh, and Kindle as well. And we also ask if you could leave us a tip. We have a PayPal. That's kind of our tip jar. We'd appreciate any support you can give us financially. So if you go to richarddugan.com, there are links at the top of that page to Amazon for the book choices and to PayPal for the tip, should you be able to do so. We also ask you to take some time during this decade of perfect vision to spend some time going within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still small voice. And with all that being said, we now move to our final three questions for a very special guest here on the program. The first question is, who is John Beyer?
Now I'm all about wanting to leave a legacy and do for others. That wasn't always the case. It was for many years it was about me, me, me. And I remember years ago I would say I have a trucking company, and I would put the name of the company on the side of the truck as big as it would fit, and I would say, "Oh yeah, it's also good for advertising." It was about ego, and now that's the furthest thing. Really, I just want to help people who are less fortunate than me.
What is it that gets you up in the morning?
My granddaughter is one, my 4-year-old granddaughter, and my music. I do love music, and I want to write and record and do more music. I've urged your audience to listen to two of my songs. I think that they would really appreciate. One is called Powerless. That song is about addiction, and the other song is called Love You More. They're mentioned in the book Live a Little Better.
All right. And folks can go to, of course, the website, johnbeyermusic.com. Final question. What was your best day?
The best day of my life, I mentioned earlier, was my first anniversary, as I realized I could see and be and do whatever I wanted in life, and I wasn't alone.
Well, John, again, thank you so much for being a part of Tell Me Your Story. And we also thank you folks for being a part of Tell Me Your Story and listening to and watching. And until our next broadcast, podcast, video cast, love to lol. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for letting me be in your life. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.